Hey, what's up guys, and today I wanted to have a discussion on possibly the most underrated deck in the new format, Lunalight. So I know when Lunalight came out, it was super hyped, the support. People are like, oh my god, Lunalight is crazy. And then the deck ended up performing really poorly. One spot in top cut at the NAWCQ. I don't know how many in the EUWCQ, but definitely not a lot, or if any. So the deck just didn't really perform. But I think, honestly, the deck was still decent, but it's just kind of like a mix of like people like over preparing for the deck, and then also like a lot of like conflicting factors. Like for example, cards people were playing for the deck were just good against other decks were good against Lunalight. But now I think Lunalight really has a chance to shine. So first we have to look at why Lunalight was like kind of weak last format, right? The first reason is Joel. Joel was everywhere in people's decks. It was the most played hand trap, I think. Maybe Lancia was played more, but Joel was definitely the most played hand trap in the main deck for sure, because of the prevalence of Ryzel and Mitsurugi cards. And Joel is honestly the best hand trap against Lunalight. That is undeniable. But now Joel has basically not seen play at all, pretty much. Definitely no one's really playing Joel in the main deck at all, and most people aren't even siding it. So like the best hand trap against your deck, going from seeing like infinite play to zero play, I think is really good for Lunalight as well, right? Another weakness of Lunalight before was the other hand traps were also pretty good against Lunalight as well, right? For example, like a lot of people were playing a heavy Bestial count if you're playing like Vanquish Soul, for instance, or like Malice, because you're just playing a ton of Bestials, because Bestials were just really good into the meta, and Bestials were also really good into Lunalight. One Bestial doesn't FTK you, but Bestial plus other hand traps, it goes pretty hard. But like with Joel, Bestials have seen like a complete reduction in play. Because even though they're only okay versus Yummy, but they're really bad in the Vanquish form, right? And not that great into Draco Tail either. So no one's really playing Bestials, maybe like a Magnamut. So I think that also is super helpful for this deck as well. The third reason is the Mouse matchup. I think the Mouse matchup was not very good. It wasn't unwinnable. Like I was testing with some pretty decent Mouse players. My win rate wasn't like terrible, definitely, but the Malice matchup wasn't anything to write home about. Malice, they just played all the great hand traps for issue. They played the Bestials, they still played Droll, they played Impulse. It was not really that great, and then going second versus them was a little bit harder than some of the other decks. So I think that also made the deck a bit weak. And the fourth reason is that the decks just outed Liger Dancer super easily. You looked at like Malice, like when they got two monsters on the field, they just threatened Cyber's Wicked. And then Cyber's Wicked just made it so that like it blanked your Liger as a disruption. It was super easy for them to summon Heart's Cryptor, super easy for them to summon like access code under it and just attack over your Liger. Like you look at Ryzel, like, some people were playing Light Dragon Adagnister, this card. Light Dragon, so that like once they got two level 4 monsters on the board, they just like destroyed your Liger. And then like the deck should just out your Liger Dancer with Engine. And Liger Dancer, it felt like Liger Dancer should have been like a boss monster. Like you summon it, you're in a pretty good position. But it felt like even if you got to like your half board of like Liger plus something else, decks could just beat that with Engine, which didn't really feel that great. So I think that was like a bit rough for the deck, especially because one of your Fua compromises, your main Fua compromise, is just to summon like Liger or 2 Liger and pray, right? But decks, it's so easy for decks to out them that they don't really feel that good, which is unfortunate. Also, in general, the fifth reason, I think people were just over preparing for the deck. The deck saw a bit too much hype at first, so people were like, too many people were talking about it, so people were like, okay, let me play these cards for it, right? Some people were playing like Kaijus in their Vanquish Soul deck, like for Lunalight. I mean, not the main, it's not like the only thing it hits, like you get like Detonator, but still, like, people were playing cards for Lunalight when they wouldn't have played those cards otherwise. People were switching from Mischief of the Gnomes to Deep Barrier, etc. So I think Lunalight had a lot of things going against it, but I think it has a lot of things going for it this format. Just, like I said, Joel's not seeing any play. The other hand traps are not seeing much play as well. Malice, while it's still a deck, and it's still a very good deck in my opinion, arguably the best deck, Malice is not seeing anywhere near as much play, Also, like, the main thing, these Justice Hunters decks cannot out Liger Dancer. Like, you summon Liger against Yummy, you win the game. Like, it's crazy. And a lot of people are on Board Breaker Yummy right now, too. So if you go first against Board Breaker Yummy, you have auto-won the game. Before, if you went first against, like, Malice, like, it felt rough. But if you go first against Board Breaker Yummy, like, you literally win the game. Right? Which is crazy. I think it's really cool for the deck. Even like Vanquish Soul and Draco Tail, those decks have an extremely hard time or just cannot out Liger themselves. Like Liger Dancer goes from like being meh to like if you summon it, you likely win the game, which I think is really cool to see. And there are some cards people can play it out Liger. For example, you can play like Arc Rebellion if you're playing Vanquish Soul. But those cards are a lot harder to get into, and honestly, a lot of them only even work if your opponent like just doesn't know about them. So I think Blacker Dancer is actually like in a win condition now, which I think is really cool. So I think that makes Lunalight pretty good as well. Also, the card I'm going to talk about a bit later, Heavy Poly. This is a card that I was not a big fan of last format, but I think this format is actually like a lot better. So I'll just get straight into the deck list. So I'm playing similar ratios that I were before. A side note, if you want to see like a combo video, I already have a bunch of those on my channel. I'll like post one in the description. But 3 Leo, 2 Chick, 2 Black Sheep. I won't speak too much about ratios. 2 Black Sheep is because you need 2 for some combo lines when you're playing 3 hand traps, but you don't really need more. One of the reasons I wasn't on 3 before was that because of Joel, but I realized that like Black Sheep isn't even the best card to open anyway, so I'm still keeping 2. 1 Martin, Tiger, Wolf, Silverhound, and Fractal. I'm on Emerald Bird. I didn't really think it was needed now. I especially don't think it's needed now that Bestials are seeing less play. So yeah, 3 Fractal, or 3 Tenki, sorry, with the 1 Fractal, 3 Masquerade, 3 Burial Goods. I think most people have not even been playing Burial Goods, which I think is crazy. And I think it's also another reason the deck hasn't performed, because people don't know how to build the deck. Yes, Burial Goods is weak into Lancia, I understand that. But the deck doesn't have that many pushes without it. I'm not going to lie. And Burial Goods, I think, is really good in this format too because of Black Oak. I think Black Oak is pretty nice into Yummy if you like against like their half board. So I'm a fan of the Burial Goods, to be honest. I like it a lot. Also, sometimes going first, you can like use it, like send the Black Oak and then play if you're like against like Vanquishful as like an out to like one of their like Lupus or the what's the name of it, like Holy Sue, Raisin, stuff like that. 3 Lunalight Perfume. I think it's a really good extender still. Foolish, Lunalight Fusion, Poly, Call By. I like Call By. Number 1, it stops Lupus, which is pretty cool because this deck does play into Azuna. But the main reason I'm maining Call By is that I think it's really good going second against Yummy because you can hit the Arclight. You can also hit the like Snatchy or something like that in the graveyard to like limit a lot of their plays. So I like Call By because of that reason. Like half the reason I'm playing it isn't even because of its use like going first. Then the Perfume, and then Blackout for the Burial Goods. For the non-engine, I'm kind of experimenting with some stuff, you know, because I've been playing the Justice Hunters decks like Drake Hotel and whatever. I haven't really been playing Lunalight as much, so these ratios, these non-engine could change. But Fua, I think Fua's like pretty solid. It's looking like Yummy's like the most represented deck, or about to be. At least like overtaking Vanquishful, so I think Fluid should be in your deck. Ash, 1 Nib. 1 Nib is per Gallant Granite, because I think like Nib plus like your Like Answer is especially GG. Impulse, pretty good. Book of Eclipse and Dark Ruler. So I think these cards are pretty decent in the format. This non-engine list main deck, it doesn't really deal with Vanquishful that well, I will admit. But I think Vanquishful, I don't think there's a way to deal with it unless like you main specifically hard for it. But that will make your other matchups worse. So I think sometimes like if they open crazy going first and they win die roll, I'm probably losing that game, which I'm happy to accept, to be honest. We're not happy to accept, but it is what it is. Not much you can do about it without compromising the deck building. Moving on to the extra deck, I'm playing 8 Fusion still. Saber Dancer is not mandatory. The other cards are mandatory in my opinion. Cat Dancer is super relevant for the Vanquishful matchup. Also, I'm playing Heavy Poly. But yeah, you can play like a card like Almirage. Almirage would be nice against like Tikaboo. Dugaris, Baguska, Tiger King, Dempsey. I'm liking Dempsey over Niarla, Gallant Granite, Cross Sheep, and SP Little Knight. For the side deck is super experimental, like I said. But basically, so Meows. So I didn't want to play Lancia because it's only really good against Malice, whereas Meows is still good against Malice, but it's also playable against Yummy. So the theory behind Meows with Yummy is that you can Meow them and they go minion revive, you get a draw, and then they might not give you another draw to make Arclight, because to make Arclight they need to give you like another Meow draw at least, so it's like okay into that. I'm gonna be honest, against good players, I don't really think the Meows is that great, because I think half the time you shouldn't even be placing the minion turn 1 anyway. But I think most people, at least for early in the format, are gonna be doing that, so I think the card can have some value there. Joel is for the Vanquishful matchup, like I said, it's rough. So Joel, you can Joel. It's also for like Mitsugi Rival. And like Heavy Poly is something I wanted to test out too. So I wasn't a fan of Heavy Poly last format. I thought the card was kind of meh. I thought it was bad. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was bad. But I think this format, the card gets a lot better. Against Yummy, I think this card is crazy. As long as they don't Arclight, you just like use this going second, you just auto win the game. which I think is really cool. So I'm testing that card out. The only issue with this card, this format, is with Vanquishful, because they have so many burn cards randomly for some reason, like Borger, the trap card, C104 Masquerade. Like they have 3 different burn cards. So I don't think Heavy Poly is. There's a world where you do main deck it. I'm not sure because of the Vanquishful matchup though. And then the thrust and the tactics are going first. Then Crush card also for going first as a Vanquishful target. I'm not playing D-Barrier right now. I think Black Goat is probably good enough against Yummy, and I wanted the side deck space. Also, I'm not even sure D-Barrier is that great versus Draco Tail, because a lot of people are on like a big hand trap build, and against the build that's playing like 20 hand traps, D-Barrier just feels bad. They just stop you from playing, and they just set up for your turn 3 with like 5 mana. So I'm not sure I like it versus that deck, but yeah, I'm just experimenting right now. But anywho, that's it. That's from my Lunalight profile. Hope you enjoyed. I think the deck does have potential. I'm gonna be 100% real with you guys. Is it better than Yummy, Draco Tail, and Vanquishful? Probably not. But is it potentially the next best deck after those? Potentially, honestly. I do think it has potential, but I'm a bit biased for the deck, I'll say that. Like, I am the owner of the Lunalight Discord, so a little bit biased. But I think the deck's really nice, though. Like, these non-engine ratios could change. Like, I'm experimenting with other stuff. Like, it's just stuff I'm testing, so, like, take it with a grain of salt. But yeah. Also, real quick, I know the deck does play into Azuna, but I think getting hit by Azuna is not the end of the world. But it's also one of the reasons why I wanted to play Ashe in the main deck. Even though it isn't that crazy going second against Yummy, I wanted to make sure that if I went first against Vanquishful, I won the game. And Ashe stops all their non-engine. The Molcharmies, I mean, you don't care about Parolia, but Fua, Azuna, Holy Sue, it stops all their non-engine. And if they only have Nib, like, you obviously, like, SDK'd your Nib, right? So I wanted to play Ashe for that reason. But yeah. Anyway, like I said, I hope you enjoyed. And try out Lunalight. I think the deck has potential. You can experiment with different, like, non-engine ratios, so. But yeah, take care.